If you understand how Howard the Duck works and his abilities and you don't care about his abilities, skip to about 13 minutes in. I just wanted to go over his abilities and why I think he's good. It just took me a bit longer than I expected, so wanted to give the warning. Okay, hey there guys. So in today's video I'm going to be going over some Howard the Duck gameplay and just some interesting things about him in general. So since his buff, right when he got buffed, he got a little bit of hate because of some people that didn't like the fact that he got buffed and they preferred him the old way with the Tiger synergy and stuff like that. But outside of 3 people, no one used him. But this Howard the Duck has actually been picking up a lot of traction over the past couple months, mainly because of one guy in particular. But there's been a couple people that have been championing for Howard since then and have been showing off some interesting stuff that he can do. So I have some interesting clips of some of his utility and just his overall damage, which is actually fairly high once you get him ramped up, which his ramp up doesn't even take that long. So I'm going to show most of his stuff with the rank 2, and I'll show the rank 3 because I feel like a lot of people won't immediately want to jump into rank 3ing Howard the Duck. I still haven't even rank 3'd mine myself, but that's just because I've had other rank ups I needed to do ahead of him for other reasons. But I am interested in bringing him up to rank 3 soon or eventually, depending on a couple things that happen with polls and stuff. So we'll start with his base stats. His base stats are fine. Decent crit rate, not the best crit rate, okay crit damage, decent armor, and moderate block. There's definitely people with lower block, but there's a lot that have 65 plus block. But he has the before the fight starts to really help out with that. So let's go over his SIG. His SIG used to be the heal or the damage over time, but they changed it to something that is quite nice. Yeah, it's interesting what it can do. So you get critical resistance, so that's not the big thing. You can also shorten debuff duration, which shortening a debuff by a full second can actually be kind of big for certain debuffs that are very high in potency but very short in duration, or mixed in with limber. If you have 5 out of 5 limber, it'll turn most stuns into very, very minimal stuns. I used to take a Howard the Duck in AQ and I couldn't use my normal strategy for that fight because of this SIG ability would just make it so my stuns fell off too quickly to use the champion that I had been using. So I had to change up the style or something like that. So 1.3 isn't a massive one, so that is something that's nice about him. Is his SIG isn't too important, except for his base ability accuracy is set a little bit higher, which actually is nice. It helps out in stuff like Domino and even Magneto, which I'll show him against Magneto later on at the end. Or maybe not at the end, at some point. I have a Magneto clip. And it turns something like Magneto into a 50-50 chance with every single ability, which 50-50 isn't good, but it's a lot better than 75%. A flip of the coin versus the weight of flip of the coin is always going to be better. So let's go over his actual abilities. So he's bleed immune, which is better than he used to be, right? He at least brings an immunity to any time that you do something. And then this, I think, is one of the bigger reasons why people have started to like him, is that his personal buffs and debuffs expire one at a time rather than all at once. Where most champions, if something is triggered at the same time, they're all going to end at the same time. Where with Howard the Duck, even if you trigger, let's say, a bunch of really short debuffs at one time, with his SP1 or his SP2, instead of it falling off really slowly, instead of it falling off quickly just all at one go, they fall off quickly individually, but they last for a while. So it's kind of cool like that, so it allows them to stay on longer than a single expiration time would, which is very interesting. So if you don't feel like hurting your fingers too much, using his pre-fight is okay. It isn't as reliable as going in without the pre-fight. If you're willing to practice to learn how to use him, he's very good without the pre-fight. The pre-fight doesn't make him bad, it's just he's better without it if you are good at using him, which I've been practicing a fair bit without the pre-fight, so it's fun when you get going with it. So this is where the fight actually starts for him. So you always gain 1 armor up buff, but when you're running in, you want to tap the screen with as many fingers as you can at once. I was doing 2, and then someone showed me how to do it with 4 fingers, I'm still not good at doing it with all 4 fingers that you can, but if you can get up to like 10 armor up buffs or something, so that's an extra 2,000, it's an extra 25,000 armor rate, which if we look over here, 400 armor is already 17%, so every 2 armors you get is worth more than 17% armor. So it's very easy to stack 6 to 7 of his armor ups. 8 plus is where it starts to get harder. But right, so let's just say you're stacking 6, so you're gaining a fair bit of armor. So it really lowers his block damage, it allows him to eat specials, eat things on the block, it just really lowers your chip damage throughout the fight, giving him a lot of sustainability, plus the ability to have very easy access to high armor up from the very start of the fight is nice, or if let's say there's buffet, you just know you won't have armor. Right, there's things like that, like you just know what you're going to get with it, so you can choose to have high armor, or you can go in with less armor if like the node requires you to have a certain amount of armor, something like Paradox, and it's like have less than 4 armor up buffs. Well, you get 3 armor up buffs and he's perfect right now, or if you need like a ton. So this is where his main damage comes in, with the Mash Fury. So while they're stunned, you want to use, if you're doing it manually, 2 to 3 fingers to tap your screen to gain Furies. It's possible to gain 7 or 8, I think, if there's no limber involved. And so you can stack up to 50 of these. And so again, at 256, that is a lot of attack rating, considering his attack rating at rank 2 is 2500. You get much more than that. He can start to hit super, super hard. He can hit very hard once you get up to the 50, and then plus, he has a synergy with Tigra, which Tigra is a very good champion already to be bringing into a lot of places. It allows you to get 20 extra, so you're able to get a full 20 extra, bringing you up to 70 Furies, which makes his damage better, but it's not really needed. Armor breaks, right? So we kind of went over, right, if 17% is 400 and you're able to stack 20 of these, you're removing pretty similar amounts to this, but part of the reason why it's so good isn't necessarily how big the armor break is. Stacking 20 80 armor breaks is quite a bit of armor break potency, right? Right, like it's 1400 armor break or something like that. I don't want to have to do the math right now, and I don't feel like thinking too hard right now, I'm sorry. But I think it's something like that for the armor potency that you're reducing, which is quite a chunky amount of armor. So it really ups his damage once you get up to the 20, and it's very, very easy. The heavy attack is the easiest buff to stack. But now what makes the buff and debuff so good is he's one of the easiest champions to control how many buffs and debuffs you have, because they each fall off one at a time. So let's say like there's a node that requires it to fall off, there's a node that requires you to gain it at a certain point in the fight. Howard the Duck, you just parry and you heavy, and you can gain as many or as few buffs and debuffs as you want. And his heavy has a fair bit of range because it has 5 hits and he walks forward with it, so it's even fairly easy to special counter. You have the special 1, which you can stack up to like 8 or something of these heal blocks for a 16-second heal block, because they each fall off one at a time, right? So you can stack a massive heal block on the opponent, but you don't even need to necessarily use that, because if you have the Despair Mastery, even if you only have 1 point in Despair, you can have 20 debuffs on the opponent. Or you can spam the SP2 and get even more debuffs, right? So like you don't even need the heal block, and you can reverse healing with 1 point in Despair with Howard the Duck. You need Petrify Mastery to actually reverse it, but if you run Despair and Petrify, you can reverse healing fairly easily with Howard the Duck, and you can block it from very early in the fight because of how you just need 4 heavies for his 20 debuffs and the healing is gone. You don't even need all 20 debuffs for that. The Special 2 is a Power Suppress, which I haven't found it too useful yet, but I could see it being useful in very certain matchups, because right, you're lowering their power combat rate by 20%, and you can stack 1 per hit, Yeah, each hit can afflict additional suppression debuffs. I'm not sure how many you can get, but let's just say it's one for all of these. So right, 3, 6, 8. So you can be stacking like 9 or so of the suppression debuffs, I think. I'm not too sure on that. I wasn't using special 2 too much. It's not his best special to use. Special 3 is really nice. It allows you to get your Furies very quickly because it's a super long stun. Now, I didn't end up testing this, but I wonder... No, never mind. I'm not going to say that. But you actually, if they have Limber, you want to hit the minigame. If they don't have Limber, you want to use your Mastery, which gives extra stun duration, rather than the passive stun, I believe. So now his synergies, right? We went over the Tiger one, which gives you quite a substantial amount of extra Fury. It's quite a lot of Fury. So now, he also has this armor rating one, which not the best, but it gives him a lot of extra tankiness, which is always nice, right? You have your special 2 gains ability accuracy, but that's not really needed because of how as long as you tap, it works well. I used this synergy a couple times where your critical hits pause your debuffs. Not needed because, right, it's so easy to reapply your debuffs, but it's an option if you need to keep your debuffs even longer. This is his synergy that makes it very, very good to use Howard the Duck. There's nodes in Alliance War in Act 7 and stuff where if they get like too many prowess, they go unblockable on their specials, and if they have prowess and it's unblockable, if you get clipped, it's going to hurt. If you're fighting a bishop, you don't even have to worry about prowess actually with bishop because you're a tech champion. He doesn't gain prowess in those matchups against techs. But let's say he did, you bring this synergy and you're removing his prowess. There's like a very high prowess, I don't know, like Storm X. You just remove her prowess by knocking her down. And also, this has some decent utility. It's not the best because it's only 65%, but the ability to lower the chance to evade is always nice. I feel like any evade utility is always nice, especially because it doesn't involve a debuff or a buff itself. So you don't have to worry if the champion has like an interaction with True Strike, True Accuracy, True Sense, or Slow or something. You're just lowering their chance to evade, which is pretty nice. He has a very versatile kit because of the access to buffs and debuffs very easily, and from the very start of the fight, you can start with enough buffs to always do damage against buffed up. With a single heavy in the fight, you're doing damage against Distrack. You have just a ton of buffs and debuffs that you get to control. His damage after ramp up is very good, and his ramp up can be as short as like 30 seconds if you're good. You can ramp him up to a point very quickly. So now I'm going to get into some gameplay of him. I hope I didn't go on too long for this part, but I wanted to tell you why, like, because his abilities aren't long, but I wanted to kind of explain like why this short ability list is good. It's just the access to ease of control of buffs and debuffs, just allowing for a lot of damage, and the ability to gain and lose when you want it is very nice in my opinion. Okay, so let's get right into the gameplay here. So this is one that I was told is a really interesting, just in general, global node that you'll find a lot, right? Life cycle, it's something that Kabam has put in a fair amount. So if you notice, I start with 6 armor ups, right, and I instantly get... I'm at 12 at 2 heavies in, so I'm able to get 6. I can definitely get more, is what I've been told, but I'm not the best Howard the Duck player yet. So the thing here is, I think I brought the evade synergy with Daredevil Hell's Kitchen. So even if I'm using the heavy, which doesn't stay within the stun, Spider-Man has a lower chance to evade for this. And with Life Cycle, because I had so many armor breaks, I have 2 points in despair, there's no heal. I did have the heal block for that fight on, I believe, so I did another fight because it went fairly quickly, right? And this one also has an unblockable finale, so this fight can be a little bit tricky if you don't like have a stunning on a special or a special food champion that does a lot of damage, because you need to get the heavy off and then you need to kill him, and you have to get the heavy to kill, and when they're unblockable it's a little bit hard to do that. So right, I have my 17 armor breaks, so he's effectively heal blocked at that point. At that point, he is more than heal blocked, right? From the arc overload, he's getting nothing. I'm always an idiot, and I try to dex that every single time, because I'm dumb. So I know what I have to do here, and he's at 1 HP because of that. So here, this is in duel against my own Nick Fury with a Limber. I get 8 armor ups on the way in, so I'm really tanky. So this is one of the fights that got Howard the Duck some fame, if I'm being honest, is this fight in War, especially like Path 5. So I run decently high Limber, so I'm only able to get like 3 to 5. I've been told the sweet spot of Furies in War is 25, and you don't want to go for too many armor breaks. So I end up messing up on that a little bit here. So he kind of works like a knockoff Penny partner for this specific fight. If the final hit that you kill with is the launched part of the SP1 that applies the heal blocks, you stop Nick Fury from healing. Therefore, just straight killing him immediately. So I accidentally am doing too much damage here, and I did a couple tests about other things first. So I know I have to kill, you have to do the kill with the rocket punch. You can't do it with anything else. I'm like, that's too much. So I see him throw a heavy, so I get clipped to get the power. I don't crit, and heal block and LMD destroyed. So you do the damage, then you apply the heal block, so it stops it. And so I have a second fight where I do it a little bit cleaner. I get the 8 armor ups again, and I do a little bit better job this time at managing like my Furies and my armor breaks. In War, you don't want to go for too many armor breaks because heavies in War are always a little bit more sketchy. So one thing I think I failed to mention is you can actually gain Furies and armor breaks at the same time, and you can gain extra Furies by doing that. Is you gain Furies during the whole time that the heavy is going off. So that is something to keep in mind of. I didn't do too great of a job of doing it here. I don't know, it just felt like it wasn't quite applying, but sometimes it was, so I'm not too sure. So with my 28 Furies and 10 armor breaks, I just need to parry him. I'm going to go in, and I wanted to drop the special one as quickly as I could because I was gaining too much power. This isn't quite the right ratio as you get in War, so it wasn't quite as good as it could have been, but I'm judging my damage, and I get the crit luckily, so I knock him out again, and he just sits at 1, and you just have to tap him once, and because you're also Howard the Duck, you're bleed immune, so you don't have to worry about that. So this is in Act 7.1, I think. This bishop is armor break immune, but the node applies cold snaps, but with tech champions you're immune to it, and there's a couple other things going on like that. So against Havoc, right, you have to re-parry to get the stun off, and so I can't even get my armor breaks on him in this fight, but I brought the Bishop Synergy, I think is who I brought for this. So do you see how he has the prowess? I'm going to let him throw his SP2, I think is how I go for it. I'm trying to bait out the SP2 though, because I need to bait it out. But this is to this fight and the next fight are to show off his prowess removing capabilities. So right, there's 5 passive prowess, and they're gone. I have 5 passive, or not passives. I have 5 prowess buffs now. So it can also make your specials hit fairly hard. And I was trying to take advantage of any stun I got against this guy to build my Furies, because this fight ended up taking a fair bit of time because he was not too cooperative with giving me a stun. But if you notice all the immunes, because I'm trying to remember the way the node worked, I think it was like, if you're a tech with an armor up buff, you don't get cold snap on you, but the way the node typically works is if they have an armor break, they cannot apply cold snap to you, but they made him cold armor break immune, so they gave you a different option of doing it. But you also gain those passive Furies. I don't remember how big they are, they're not too big though, so this is pretty much what his damage is like in a debuff immune, or not debuff immune, in an armor break immune matchup. It's maybe like a touch higher, but it's barely any, and this is him at his 50 Furies, because I don't have a 5-star Tigra. And again, kind of like with the Colossus video, Havoc has a minus 50% damage on crits, so all the crits are times 2. So like, that's a 46,000 crit on the SP2. That's a 16k crit medium without his armor breaks. I think that's fairly good damage. right? Like, he's not the best champion in the world. I don't think many people would argue that. There is one person. I'll give it to him. In his hands, Howard is very good. I've seen some incredible fights from him. But for most people, Howard the Duck's not going to be your, like, every single use champion. But he has a lot of damage, and the ramp up isn't taking too long. And this is another one I just wanted to show a little bit better the prowess removal. So this fight has Tech Wrath, so I have 125% passive Fury. So it's a little bit exaggerated, the damage, but you also have glancing to compete with, so it's not too crazy. And so right, anytime either of us fill a bar of power, she's gonna gain 1 prowess per bar filled, but when she has the second stance, it's like, I don't remember their exact names, but it's the ice and the lightning stance. It makes it so that way she gains a second prowess. So I'm trying to spam heavies so that way she's gaining extra prowess, but I'm just taking most of her prowess. So I'm going to use that to my advantage because I have my 7 armor ups and I have decent block. I'm going to start pushing her to SP2 and just like taking them on the block because they do no damage without the prowess. So, right, she has 4 prowess here, so I just want her to come in at me. I parry her, and I just remove her prowess. So because I glance, I don't steal them back, but he has one of the most consistent ways to remove prowess in the game, as some people are talking about Nimrod, and that's one of Nimrod's best uses right now, is the fact that there's like 3 champions or something that can remove prowess outside of Nullify. Because right, like with this Storm X here, I could use a Nullify champion, but let's say those were passive prowesses, you can't use a Nullify to remove passive, so I need something that removes any prowess. And that's to show off a little bit of his tankiness. Even with like the 4 prowess, it only did like 300 on my block because of my armors. This is another matchup that the guy I have suicides on because I'm dumb. Just don't question the suicides for the next couple clips. I was an idiot this morning. So, Howard the Duck can not counter Magneto, but with the dupe, as I said, you have a 50-50 chance to stun him. And especially if you're against the wall, if you notice that, Howard the Duck's heavy is so fast that it's too quick for Magneto. This is an Act 7 Magneto. I wanted him to be aggressive, but he just sits there. So I was only able to get like 2 of these off. So he tries to go in after I hit him while he's unstoppable, but because of how fast your heavy is, he actually is not able to punish you. Which makes Howard the Duck not a good Magneto counter, but it's something he can do. But there's other matchups where that could come in handy in the future, we don't know. So this fight is in Act 7, as you saw. The nodes are not like it's not the hardest lane, but there were some people I remember who were like a little bit frustrated with this one. But Howard happens to have a really good combination for this fight. So it has Mixmaster, so you have to, mix up your combos and stuff. But you can apply a Cold Snap if you mix an Armor Break and a Stun at the same time. It turns it into a Cold Snap, which right, Cold Snap removes the effect of Evade. So I'm able to parry and heavy, and that turns it off. And if you notice, I'm not gaining Furies while I'm heavying, which you're supposed to be able to gain Furies while you heavy. I'm not sure if that's just me being dumb or something. So this was actually my second attempt at this, and I learned something in the first fight is don't throw an SP2, and halfway through the fight I just throw an SP2 because I wasn't focusing enough, I guess. So this node also has Armored Assault, so if they gain an Armor Up buff, they go unblockable. But again, Howard the Duck, because he's at 5 hits, every time he gains an Armor Up buff, which happens at a 10-hit timer, you're applying an Armor Break every single hit at the 10th hit, right? And the armor's broken again. So you're able to remove the Armor Up before it's an issue. This last fight, I just wanted to kind of test how far I could push his damage against Abyss Infinity War Iron Man, which, if I had slightly better, like, mental management and focus, and a little bit better AI, my R2 with suicides, I guess, on, because that is important to note, I do have suicides on at this point, because I felt like putting them on. can do it in about 1 revive. So the reasons why I wanted to try out this fight is because, right, Iron Man Infinity War, especially in the last phase, can become very problematic for some people because he has his own passive armor ups which give him the power gain, but the Abyss node that gives him an armor up buff also counts for the power gain. But with Howard the Duck, every single heavy, every time you hit, which is when he could potentially trigger it, you're able to remove every single armor up buff, and you're able to throw specials as you wish because you're removing his armor up buff, so you don't have to worry about that. That was me trying to spam tap as fast as I could for my Furies, but I ended up messing up and I would dash in accidentally. So the two big mistakes I was making in this fight are, after I have my 20 armor breaks, I want to be not throwing heavies, but I continue to do it. And then like here I wasn't throwing the heavies. I was making a couple mistakes like that, and then coming up soon, you'll see as I'm trying to like dash back, and I'm not sure if it's like a bug or it's just an issue with like my screen, but sometimes while dashing back, especially if I have the phone the opposite way, which I normally hold it, I tap the special button as I'm dashing back. But I want to get to another SP3 here because suicides, and because I want to get off as many Furies as I can. I want to get up to my 70 because I was able to bring a 4-star Tigra for Synergy. So I was trying to dash in there to avoid the fight me coward, but I wasn't able to. And so if you're looking at this fight, you're like, how on earth are you saying that if I had a bit better AI, you would be getting like 50% off in a single revive? Because I am now fully ramped up. I have my 70 Furies and my 20 armor breaks. And I still haven't made the mistake of throwing a special 2, which wastes a bunch of hits because it doesn't hit that hard except for like the first hit if it crits. Right there. I was trying to dash back from his special 2, but I accidentally hit the special button while trying to evade. It happens. But right, like on those heavies, I shouldn't actually be throwing it. I should be throwing combos because, right, that medium crits for 22k, which is quite a chunky medium. Wait, did I say 22? I don't think it crit for 22. I think my eyes are going bad. What the heck? But yeah, so Howard the Duck has very good damage, is what I was finding. Not finding. I knew he had very good damage. Once you get all of his debuffs and all of his buffs, he has just so much damage. And the ability, as I said, to like control when they go on and when they fall off is very nice. And this fight's just about over, so I'm going to be wrapping up the video here. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this Howard the Duck gameplay. It's not the best gameplay of Howard the Duck I've seen. I kind of want to make maybe some more videos on Howard the Duck, but I'm not sure exactly what to do with him yet. So I'm going to play around and see what I can do with that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys soon, I guess. I plan to get out a couple more videos today as long as I have the time. And I'm just going to show you quickly how much damage I did. I was able to do almost 1 million damage in that fight. Actually, I did over 1 million damage. So, it's pretty good.